Hi, my name's Jason Hall. I wanted to take a minute and tell you a little bit about myself and about what we're working on with this PCORI grant, working on bladder issues. I think that it will give you a little bit of an insight into my story and to some of the things that we're trying to accomplish as a team. When I was 15 years old, there was lots of things that I loved to do, but there was nothing that I liked to do as much as I liked to water ski. You can imagine then the excitement that I felt when my dad came down that year and said, Jason, this year for our family vacation, we're going to Lake Powell for a week of water skiing. I couldn't wait. For those of you who don't know, Lake Powell is a lake, a large lake, that's a part of it's in southern Utah and part of it's in Arizona. So it's the desert and it is warm all the time, which makes for perfect water for water skiing. My dad came down and gave me the news. I was so excited, I ran into the garage and grabbed my water ski, waxed it up, started sleeping with it. This was in November. July finally rolled around and we loaded up the boat and headed down to Lake Powell. We put our boat in the water on a Saturday afternoon, and I skied all that day and into the night. Literally as long as I could still see the boat, I skied. And Sunday at about 1 o'clock, I'd run down the water, a sand dune, dove into the water that was a little too shallow and broke my neck. It was a game changer, changed my whole life. I've learned so much from the things that happened to me over the course of the rest of my life. Those past 30 years have been formative in the sense that this great adversity changed me in real and meaningful ways. What I've learned, however, is a lot about what it takes to be successful in life and as teams. And I want to take a minute and talk to you a little bit about some of the things that I've learned in my life about success and some of the ways that we're going to put those principles into action as a team. First, I've learned that you have to be goal-oriented. If you don't have a defined goal and know where you're going, then you end up spending a lot of energy going nowhere fast. When I was a young boy, I grew up in Boise, Idaho, and I had the distinct honor of growing up in the same town that both my mom and my dad grew up in. Well, because they grew up in the same small town, Sundays often meant that my dad would grab all of us kids and throw us in that car. When I say all, I mean all. We were a young Mormon family, so jillions of kids, and put all the kids in this station wagon, and we'd head off to go Sunday driving. We would go to the house that they first lived in, and where my dad grew up, and where my mom grew up, and where they went to school, and where they used to go get hamburgers. And my parents were in sheer bliss, but as kids, we were in utter misery. It didn't matter where we were going or how long it took to get there. We couldn't wait for it to be over. It was long and tedious and boring. And then worst of all, the very last stop on the trip, my dad would pull up, look out the window and point to a lamppost and say, kids, you see that lamppost? That's where I used to kiss your mother. Well, as an 8-year-old boy, you know your dad has to kiss your mom, but you don't want to know much more than that. So anyways, there we were Sunday driving every single Sunday. What's interesting is every summer, my dad would take the same kids, put them in the same car, and we'd go on our summer vacation. We couldn't wait. It didn't matter how far we had to go. It didn't matter how early we got up in the morning or how late we were in the car at night. We were excited. The whole way, singing some version of the Hall family song. We are the Hall, Stephen J. Halls. Everywhere we go, people want to know who we are, so we tell them. Or 99 bottles of milk on the wall. Like I said, I'm Mormon, so we changed that up a little bit. But there we were, same kids, same car. And we couldn't wait to get there. What was different? The only thing that was different was the destination. We knew where we were going and we were excited to get there. It gave us a passion for what was going out, and that passion bred, as it always does, excitement. With this grant, we know exactly what we're about. We know our goal. We are working hard to try and see if we can find ways to bring answers to some of the difficult bladder questions that plague people who deal with paralysis and other issues. This is a critical issue. This passion and this dedication is going to help us because we know where we're going. and we're excited to get there. And when that happens, that's going to breed a lot of summer vacations for a lot of people all along the way. Success also comes because of creativity, finding new answers to hard questions, finding new ways around difficult problems. When I broke my neck, I spent 3 months in the hospital straight, and then a number of time in and out of clinics and therapy and all that kind of stuff afterwards as well. When you're in the hospital, there are times that you have to find new answers to difficult questions. I remember one time I was on a tracheotomy, so I had a tube that was going in my throat to assist me to breathe. Well, one night, it was late at night or early in the morning, and I got a plug in that tube. Well, with that plug, I couldn't breathe. And I woke up and I knew that I wasn't breathing. And so I went to call the nurse. Unfortunately, because I couldn't move my hands very well, they'd reset up a different call light for me. And that call light was a straw that I would blow in. You can see the problem. If I can't breathe through my trach, then I can't get any air to yell, and I can't get any air to blow through and call the nurse. There I am, not breathing, and I knew that was going to be bad. I remembered back to my 8th grade health class when I'd learned that breathing was important, that you were supposed to breathe every day and night. And there I was in my bed not breathing. I remember hearing the nurse. The nurse's station was literally 10 feet from my bed. And I thought, I'm going to die in here, 10 feet away from the people who can help me because I can't make a sound. Instantly, I started to figure out if there was a new way that I could solve that difficult problem. I thought and thought and thought of an answer that I could, of a sound that I could make that didn't require air through my vocal cords. The only one that I knew was the one I would use to call my mom over during the days. And so I started to do it as loud as I could. It was the only thing. It doesn't take any air through your vocal cords to do that sound. But it wasn't very loud. And there I was with all my might laying in bed. After about 30 seconds, I was losing energy and getting scared. There I was in bed, just running out of gas. I knew that I was starting to black out, and I knew that that meant trouble. I had to make one last-ditch effort to try and get the nurses who I could hear talking right outside my door. Finally, just as the blackness started to envelop me, I thought of the only other thing that I could do to make noise without getting air through my vocal cords. As loud as I could, I made the biggest that I could make. The nurses heard that. They knew that sound, and they came running in. They came running in with wet towels, and they thought they had a different problem to solve. But they came in to help me, and they saw me there not breathing, cleared the tube, and helped me on my way. Sometimes that's how it is. Success means thinking outside the box, finding new answers and new ways to solve problems. If we're going to be successful as we work together, we're going to have to think of new answers because the old ones aren't working anymore. We are dedicated to thinking creatively. As you join us on this journey, we invite you to help and share that creativity so we can find the answers to difficult bladder questions and move on to health and happiness. As passionate as we are about this goal and dedicated as we are to creative thinking, we know that success in this arena only comes when we remember the people that it's there about to help. If you are to have success in any arena, then you must remember people. After I broke my neck in 1986, I thought that was all I was going to have to deal with reference to these large, big medical issues in my life. Then in 1997, I was working as a financial planner, and driving down the interstate, my front left tire blew. My car went across all 3 lanes of traffic going south, through the median, and into the oncoming traffic on the interstate. Which, by the way, just a side note, if you need to turn around on the freeway, I recommend that you get off on the on-ramp, off-ramp, go over the interstate and come back on. It's slower, but a little more effective. At any rate, there I was, my car went through it, put me in the hospital for 13 months straight, and nearly 10 years of hospitalization and therapy afterwards. As I was in the middle of that therapy, I had to start learning how to sit up again. I remember the therapist came into my room and said, "Jason, we're going to teach you how to sit up." I remember thinking, I've been sitting up for quite some time, nearly all my life, and I think I can remember how to do that. Well, the problem wasn't learning how to sit up. The problem was teaching my lungs again to breathe upright. They had settled in my body laying down so much. In fact, the first time the therapist came in, they lifted me out of my bed, put me in my chair. I passed out and they lifted me back in my chair. That's all, back into bed. That was all the time I was able to sit up for. And now I had to work on it because I had to be able to get better at it. And every day the therapist would come in and 1 minute turned into 2, which turned into 5, which turned into 15 and 30. And finally I got to an hour where I could sit up in my chair for an hour. But there was something about that hour that just got in my way and I couldn't get over that hump. Every time an hour came on, I just lost my stamina and couldn't breathe very well and always had to lay down. And one day we were in I was in a care center down in Provo, Utah, and there was a little walkway in the back of this care center right along the Provo River. And we would go and walk on there, that walkway in the summertime. And we were walking on the pathway one time, and I could feel it. I could feel that hour coming on. And so I turned Kelly, my therapist, and I said, "Kelly, I got to go back." And he said to me, he said, "Jason, there's a 7-Eleven at the end of this path. If you'll make it to the end of the path, I'll buy you a Slurpee." Now, after having been in the hospital for 7 months, having only eaten hospital food, a Slurpee sounded like ambrosia. It was difficult for me at that time to think of something that sounded better to me than a Slurpee. I knew that the hour was coming up, but I was dedicated to get that Slurpee. And so I stuck with Kelly. We went to the 7-Eleven, got the Slurpee, went back to the care center, sat in my room, and finished my Slurpee. As I finished my Slurpee, I looked up on the wall, and I'd been sitting up for an hour and a half. Every day, Kelly would come and get me, and every day he'd walk a little slower on his way to buy me a Slurpee. An hour and a half turned into 2, turned into 2.5 and 3 hours. Every day, Kelly bought me Slurpees to help me on my way. Kelly changed my life. Literally changed my life by buying me Slurpees. He found ways. He gave up lunches, gave up breaks, traded with other therapists. Other therapists helped pick up time so that he would have the time to walk slowly down that path and help me be able to sit up for a longer period of time. Are we buying Slurpees for other people? Are we taking time out of our day to do what we can to change the lives of others? If we want success of any kind in any endeavor, then it is critical, paramount, that we take time to think about others. We will succeed in our goal here if, amongst all the data, we will never forget the people. There is opportunity to get involved and help us with this study. The only way this works is for a vast number of people to get dedicated to volunteerism. To say that outside of a tiny monetary benefit, that I am going to spend a part of my day buying Slurpees by filling out reports and reporting on how my bladder management goes. There are many people who will say, "I can't do it. It's too much time in my day." But if you look at your day and say, how can I spend a little bit of this day doing something for someone else? This study will change lives. I believe it. I know it because I've been there. come on this journey with us, take a minute to report on how your bladder does so that you can buy Slurpees and change the lives of others as we complete this work. We're dedicated to the idea of helping people. We have to be dedicated to our goals, think creatively, remember other people, and then we have to work together. There are a lot of really smart people working on this study. But we're better together than we are apart. When I was in the hospital, one of the things, as I told you just a minute ago, that you learn pretty quick is the food's pretty bad. I remember one hospital I was in, they would come and they would give you a pass. One meal every day you could go down and eat in the cafeteria. Now, when you go to a hospital, you may think the food in the cafeteria that you go to isn't very good, but that food is light years ahead from the food that they're serving in the rooms. I don't know why they can do the food pretty good in the cafeteria and so bad in the rooms, but that's how it works. And so every week, we'd get a pass. Now you had to be careful. There was a little gamesmanship in the way that you used this pass because you didn't want to use it too early and then something horrible was coming, and you didn't want to save it too late and have eaten something you didn't have to eat. So we would plan and think and really work through the right way to use this pass. I remember one week, it was Saturday night, and we all looked around. We all knew that all the passes were gone. Nobody saved their pass till Saturday night. And then we would eat all together, and the person from food services came in and announced, he said, guys, today dinner is a delicacy. And I remember we were like, oh, hallelujah, because delicacy is a good thing. We didn't have passes, so we thought we'd made it through another week. And she came out and she said, tonight we're going to be eating cooked bananas wrapped in ham, dipped in cheese sauce. Now, I don't know where that's a delicacy, but I know I never want to go there. And we looked around and we knew that every single person there had given up their pass. And every single person there, if we were going to have dinner, was going to have to eat cooked bananas wrapped in ham, dipped in cheese sauce. I was cooked. I knew if I went to the nurse and said, I need a new pass, she would say, you've already used your pass and you're not going to get another one. What we figured out, though, was she might say no to one of us, but she wasn't going to say no to all of us. We got our wheelchairs down. We went side by side down that hall. We looked like Hell's Angels in wheelchairs. We got to that desk and she looked at us and we told her about cooked bananas wrapped in ham, dipped in cheese sauce. And she knew that we were not going to eat that. Not able to deny us together, she gave us all passes. And we went down and had a great dinner in the cafeteria of the hospital. We were stronger together than we were apart. As we work on this study and work hard to find these answers that we believe are so important, we know that we can get there if we work together. What we also know is that we are stronger when you join us. There is more power in more people. We are going to get better answers with more intel. And so we ask you, we invite you to come with us, strengthen this study so that we can go and change the lives of others. Finally, success only comes when you persist. Nobody has ever gained anything of value by quitting. Right after I had my auto accident, it was bad. I mean, I had busted up my body in a bad way. My body, in fact, had become one big black eye. You know, if you get hit in the eye, it gets all black and it just starts to swell and filling up with fluid. And that's what my whole body was doing. And after that fluid filled up my tissue, then it started to go to my organs. And I had been there 2 days, and the fluid was starting to enter my heart, my liver, and my lungs. The doctors knew this, and they went to my parents and said, you know, Jason, if you're going to say goodbye, to Jason, you better do it tonight because he's not going to be here tomorrow. My parents trying to get really a picture on what they said. I mean, he might not be here. He could not be here. I said, no, he will not be here. There's no chance. And that night was probably about as difficult a night as I've ever had in the hospital. I would lay in my bed and the fluid would get into my lungs and I just couldn't breathe anymore. It was too much to breathe. It was so labored. It was just very difficult. And they felt like if they gave me a tracheotomy like they had done in my first accident, that I would never come off the trach, and so they were leery to do that. The only way then to get the fluid out of my lungs was to take a little tube and put it in my nose, down my throat, and into my lungs, and to suction the water out. This was very painful. And about 9 o'clock at night, I started having the nurses come and do it. And they did it, and they got all that water out of my lungs, the fluid out of my lungs, and finally I could breathe. And about 45 minutes later, it was all back. And I called the nurse in, and again, and it got to the point where there was all this blood, and they'd stopped changing the gown because we were doing it so often. Finally, about 3:30 in the morning, I buzzed the nurse back in. I said, "Nurse, we got to do it again." And she looked at me, knowing the diagnosis, the doctor. In fact, I was the only one that didn't know the diagnosis, thankfully. And the nurse looked at me and said, "Jason, you don't have to do this anymore." And I remember thinking and looking at her, what do you mean if I quit, then I'm done? If I quit, then my life is over. Knowing that that was not the end result I wanted, I encouraged her to go get the suction team and come back. Over and over and over that night. Through a lot of pain, a lot of blood, a lot of tears, we continually suctioned the fluid out of my lungs. If I had taken her suggestion to quit, I would not be here today. But that's what quitting does to us. Quitting stops our progression. Quitting ends our ability to succeed. We are not quitters. We are dedicated to finding hard answers to these difficult questions. We hope that you'll find these goals worthwhile. Become as dedicated to them as we are. Have a desire to share your creativity. Serve others and give back. Buy Slurpees and persist. If we will, we know that our only eventuality is success. That we will find answers that will free people, that will help them on their journey, that will give them access to a better life. And could there be anything better than that? We hope that you will be with us. We're excited for the answers to come and grateful for the time that you've taken to listen to this video today. I'm Jason Hall. Have a great day.